Okay, everyone, welcome to It Needs to Be Said. Two sisters who like to keep it real. We might make you laugh and hopefully we'll make you think. We are back with part 2 of our conversation with Patricia Weerakoon. We're having a great time and we are going on many, many tangents. So we're going to try to keep it a bit tighter this time. Last episode, we explored about the beauty of God's design for sex. Today, we're talking about the reality many people live in, where sex feels confusing, heavy, or even disconnected.
Patricia, I think that I love talking about sex and I love talking about pornography. I love asking even my girlfriends, how's your sex life? And that's because a lot of my research that I've mentioned to you in when I did my Masters of Psychology was on pornography. And I just found so much joy in being able to talk about things that the world doesn't want to talk about or that Christians don't want to talk about. And that's part of our heart for this podcast, is to have conversations that feel a little awkward or a little bit tricky to talk about, but that are so worth talking about. And one of the hardest things I find talking to Christian women is talking about sex. And I would love for that to be a different experience for people. I think we talk a lot about it maybe as when you're engaged, going into your engagement phase, and only if you've been abstinent, only if you've been what's the word I'm looking for? If you've abstained. If you've abstained, it's kind of nice to talk about it because you've done the good thing, right? But if you've had sex before marriage, then it's now all of a sudden it's off the cards, off the table. So I guess I want to ask, why does sex still feel so complicated for so many Christians when we know that God's design is the opposite, that we should have a lot of clarity and almost hope in sex, but it feels so complicated for Christians? Why do you think that is? It's a big question, gosh.
Now, I'll make it, now we'll keep things short, I guess, because again, I can talk forever on each of these. Couple of things. One is that, unfortunately, we have not talked about sex as something beautiful and open in the church, and more importantly, in the home.
Right.
Parents haven't talked to their children about healthy sexuality and body early. So it's parenting and the church not teaching about, not talking about sex as just something beautiful and wonderful. And secondly, we can't assume that because people call themselves Christians, they actually know that the Bible is so sex positive.
Right.
And so good teaching, but also a knowledge base and the attitudes that go with it, that it is not shameful because God created it.
Right.
When I talk to teenagers, I say naked and no shame was how it was meant to be. Nakedness is total vulnerability. No shame is to be in a place of total trust. Other focus trusting. And there is only one place where you can be totally vulnerable and know that you are with someone whom you can trust with your very life. And that is called marriage, because the person has made promises before God and his people to care for your body and your soul and your mind till death separate you. We haven't not talked about this. We can't assume that young Christians understand this.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think for me personally, leading up to marriage, we were engaged for 3 years. And so for a lot of that, not engaged for 3 years, we dated for 3 years, then we got married. And so for a lot of that time, it was, boundaries and accountability and sexuality was a bit naughty. So it was a bit alluring. And I know that for Eliza, she's in the South of America, there's this big purity culture as well, where there's a lot of emphasis on that. And then you get married, again, the teaching stops, the conversations stop, and then you're suddenly meant to switch and just be, ready and happy to have sex and be turned on all the time. And now we're having this conversation, and I think it is clear when you read your Bible or if you do a bit of research that God designed sex, and there's Songs of Solomon and all of that. So we know that it's a spiritual experience. But for people who, because I think I still struggle with this, to be honest, I've been married for almost 9 years or so, and I still think there's something in my brain that I'm still impacted by the dating experience and everything being a no zone to now everything's, it's a playground that I can explore. So if any of the listeners are experiencing that, what advice would you give from what advice would you give to people about switching their mindset from everything's naughty to now this
There's
is
freedom.
God's, there's freedom in this, God designed this for you, and God's actually with you in this.
I think the most important thing is to go back to what are we teaching about dating.
Right.
I mean, the Bible hasn't got anything about dating in it, because
Okay.
in the culture in which the Old Testament, New Testament were written, it wasn't about dating. It was maybe, like most marriages were arranged or short courtship. So we need to be very clear what we mean by dating and how we teach our young people. Now, ideally, dating should be with one to one, intimate dating. And when I mean intimate, I said building that uh, spiritual and emotional intimacy should be explored with the intentionality towards marriage.
Right.
That is ideal dating. Otherwise, it should be friendship. And asking someone for a coffee doesn't mean the engagement ring. So it should be just getting friendship together. And we need to talk to young people clearly about this. Don't get into that intimate one to one till you're actually ready to think about, do I want to get married? Am I looking for a partner for marriage? That's the first thing. The second thing is to teach young people early that your body is beautiful and it is precious. But when you are in a stage of development, now I'm going to give you neuroscience
Please.
101 in 30
Please.
seconds.
Great.
Your developing brain, is in a state of emotional response. So the emotional brain is erupting like a volcano when you are anything from puberty to your mid 20s, and your control brain is still developing. So you are likely to make decisions that are based on what I am feeling right now. So that feelings of good feeling towards someone, high risk taking, it's a risky, which is where when you mention the word naughty comes in. It's a risk, it's beautiful. That's my emotional brain saying it.
Right.
And if someone says don't do it, it makes it even more, like the risk is even more exciting. It's like in the Old Testament when it says the law was given, so that, unfortunately, the law makes sin even more prevalent because law
Right.
breaking. So when you're told don't, the risk taking brain says, I want. So that's an emotional brain, and the control brain is still developing. So
Okay.
young people need to understand that risk taking is part of growing up. So just because you feel that way, there's nothing wrong with you. It is being a young person, it is being a teenager. You need help and support to control those feelings. So that's
Right.
one thing. We need to talk to young people. The other thing is, when a word says go ahead with dating, all you need is consent. Now I think wherever you're in the world, it's about this consent. How much can I get away with, is what
Right.
consent really says. We need to be talking and saying your body is beautiful. You need to understand that we need to honor your body and honor the body of your partner. Your partner is going to be either let's talk of women, that your partner is going to be somebody's wife or your wife.
Yeah.
So honor that. Or the same way with the man, with the boy. Honor the person. And so what you do is not based on what can I get away with, but how much can I honor you and build you up. So understand your brain is emotional and can be, just lead you on all these tangents. Understand that dating is not about having consent and how far can I go, but about how can I honor you. Thirdly, understand the physiology in your body, that, you know, because you're at that stage when your hormones are rushing around in your body and your brain, you get sexually aroused.
Mm.
And there may be times when even just holding hands is sexually arousing. What is sexual arousal? Now, for boys, it's kind of easier because, they have an inbuilt barometer, and you get an erection, you're aroused. For girls, it can be slower, and, you get your body feeling of, moisturizing vagina, just general tingly, I'm getting turned on.
Mm.
We need to teach our children that that's the red flag.
Okay.
You're with someone and you're getting sexually aroused. It's it's unhealthy and unwise to continue in that moment because your brain is not ready. And two, it is actually not other person honoring. If
Mm.
you think that person's turning on, getting turned on and aroused, or you are, it is not honoring to the other. It's time to step back. All that is hard for young people to do on their own. We need to be teaching them and then providing. So God gives you these. Science says that this is the best way to actually build relationship. And we are here as a church, as your parents, and parents are really hard to talk to about sex when you're a teenager or a little over. But we are here as a church, youth workers, support staff, leaders in church. We are here to help you. So
Mm.
come to us. We can help you by being someone you're accountable to. We need to set these boundaries, but
Yeah.
the goodness of sex in those boundaries.
I love that you said that. If you're you're in dating, if you feel yourself getting aroused, you need to take a step back, but also with the knowledge of arousal is good. Arousal is going to be helpful for you to have a healthy sex life, because I think it creates just a framework for how you view your own body as a gift and as something precious. Because I think growing up, when we grew up, and a lot of my friends have grown up in very heavy purity culture, I think almost when you get married, it's not just the act of sex that can feel dirty or off limits. It's even just your own body can feel like not your own because you've had to shut down these things. So I'll never forget when my husband and I did premarital counseling. Oh yeah, premarital counseling. I think it was a month before we got married, and they said, "Okay, here's a list of questions that you're going to go and talk about. It's all about sex, and the only rules for this is you're going to go and do this in a public place at a cafe." Because you shouldn't be alone. You shouldn't be in your car. You should be in a public space because you're going to be behaved. And the questions were so good. It was, some of them were things like, what do I think I'm comfortable with in sex? Is there anything that I'm not comfortable with? So that we're already getting a little bit of a dialogue happening, and we were already kind of shifting our perspective just in a sense of like, oh, sex is good. It's holy. And we can talk about it, comfortably. And also there's limits, there's boundaries in the engagement phase, which I think helped our transition be a little bit smoother. But I think the transition for a lot of women and men, but I think more women, is really difficult, especially in a time when Christian couples are getting married later. So they've been in that
Yeah.
season of sex is dirty and naughty and wrong for longer. And so that shift is even more difficult because they haven't gotten married at 22 when your hormones are still raging. So you can almost compensate.
Can I ask a question there that kind of links to that? So you spoke before about, once you start feeling yourself get aroused, then it's time to pull back. I'm wondering, I've like created a hypothesis in my head. I don't know, you guys are both this, the experts, but if you are someone who would act on that arousal and then have sexual experiences, perhaps even orgasms in that space of naughtiness, we shouldn't be doing this is wrong. Do you think that then your body starts to get used to that sort of experience of sex, that it's like,
Right.
does that make sense? Like you're enjoying it because it's naughty. And then when you're married, it's not naughty anymore. Can that have an impact on your arousal?
Oh, definitely. I have counseled couples who
Wow.
said just that.
Okay.
It was fun when it was forbidden.
Right.
Right.
Now that it is allowed, it isn't that much fun. I mean, look, there is a purpose in God's good plan.
Mm,
We do not, because you cannot just do what your heart desires without consequences. Sad.
It's
It's like
heartbreaking.
yeah.
yeah, these things happen. So we have to then step back and really retrain couples
Mm,
from beginning of intimacy that it is okay to enjoy it and just
right.
get over sometimes it's guilt and shame, but sometimes it's just that your brain got
Mm,
used to it, and it's
mm,
retraining and rewiring the brain to
Mm.
accept that it's okay to enjoy it now.
Wow.
It's something we see in counseling.
Mm.
do you think that? Sorry, I'm going to go on another tangent. Is that okay?
Yeah, go
'Cause
on.
Patricia, you did it last episode, so I'm going to do it this episode. But your mention just then of like it being forbidden, it made me think about obviously in dating, the forbidden fruit is intimacy, like sexual intimacy. That's the forbidden fruit. And then when you're married, there's still forbidden fruit. It's just now in the
Mhm.
confines of marriage. So, how does that shift from dating to marriage? That there still is there still is the potential of sin while exploring sexuality with your husband or your wife. So
Mm.
just because like I used to honestly think, well, once we're married, I'm good. Like I'm safe now. I can't do the wrong thing. But yeah, how can you still, how should we be mindful of, something that's like forbidden fruit within marriage, and how
Mm.
do we navigate that?
Thank you. Excellent question. The question that we are often asked is like, once you're married, is anything okay?
Right.
And I tell people a three-pointer. I said, firstly, is what you are thinking of or wanting your spouse to engage in, is it in any way physically or emotionally harmful?
Mm.
Let me give you an example there. For instance, let's take something like oral sex, stimulating the genitals orally. I mean, there's a very large proportion of couples who really enjoy that. But there could be some young people or some men or women, often women, but could be men, who for whatever reason consider like the genitals as something a bit dirty. So why would, I don't want to put my mouth to it, or have you put your mouth to it? I
Sure.
mean, it could be sadly tied in with some experiences of
Mm,
abuse or
Mhm.
pornography or something. So
okay.
if that is the case, I tell people one way is, maybe you could, if you think it's unclean, have a good hot shower together or something like that. You may get over it. But even if that doesn't work, well, then instead of saying, oh, but I really want this, remember it's
Mm.
always other focused,
Right.
Mm,
you could think of other alternate ways of
Mm.
pleasuring. So is that a simple thing could be emotionally harmful, but there are other practices. Couples ask sometimes, what about like role playing? Now, you love your spouse, the wife or husband of your youth. Why would you want the person to dress up as a nurse or a whatever?
Mm.
Why?
mm,
Why would you have to role play? Often it's tied in with pornography,
Mm.
right.
that role playing. But so that's emotionally harmful. I mean, we won't even think of it's rare, but it's not absolutely not there for couples to even want to engage in like harmful behavior where it's actually hurtful, like we talk of bondage, discipline. I tell couples, do not walk into a sex shop whatever
Mhm.
you do,
Mhm.
because it is plain unhealthy to do
Right.
that. So is what I am asking, we could go into so many areas there, in any way emotionally or physically harmful. The
Mhm.
second thing I ask couples to think, or a person to think about, is what I'm asking my partner for. Is it honoring the person? You know,
Mm,
as Christians, anything we do in marriage is about caring for and honoring. It's like, what can I do to make this better for you? Not
Right.
my self gratification. And like
mm,
you rightly said, that is totally countercultural,
Mm.
but it is what Christ did for us,
yeah.
always other focused. And
Right.
that's what marriage, the best marriage is. Is
Mm,
it harmful psychologically or emotionally? Is it other honoring in doing this? And thirdly, and I say this kind of flippantly, but also it's important. Is it something I don't mind talking about? I say, think in my growth
Mm,
group or Bible study or whatever the group
Right.
is. If you're all Christian couple, can we sit around and say, oh, we really enjoy this? Now, maybe you're
Right.
not at a level when you can do that, but do you think it's
mm,
okay as Christians to
okay.
share this? So, whatever experience you may be thinking, some people talk about, various sexual practices or positions. Some people talk about, can we use sex toys? Whatever it is, run it through this. So I'll stop
Mm.
there and happy for you to take it on tangents you want to.
No, it's
No,
it,
that's awesome.
it just is becoming more and more relevant, I think. I think when you're a newlywed
Mm.
and you get married, it's this whole new world has opened up. And then as we've been married for a while, I've been married for 10 years, we've had 3 kids, and all of a sudden all those things have become almost more important to me because a lot of women want to spice up their sex life. And so all of a
Yeah,
sudden you are asking yourself certain questions, and the world is just, we have so much
yeah.
access to so much sexual, not just sexually explicit content, but I don't have to go to a sex shop anymore to buy a sex toy. I can go on
No.
Amazon and it can be here within the day, and I'm not held
And sex
accountable.
positivity as well is so rampant. Like they want to tell you like everyone should have a vibrator and that's women empowerment.
That's right. And we should be masturbating because we are in charge of our own body. So we should be giving ourselves orgasms. There's just so much access now that it almost feels nice to just go, you're just back into your world. It's just you and your husband, and that's where
Yeah.
you communicate well. And I know for a fact that what I'm comfortable with, Salome may not be comfortable with. Um, in fact, my husband has some boundaries that I don't think are necessarily sinful or not, but it's just what he's comfortable with and what he's not
Mm.
comfortable with. And to push those boundaries, I think would be so dishonoring of him and how the Lord made him and what his history is as well. Because I think some of these things, let's say oral sex, for example, if a male or female have watched a lot of oral sex in pornography,
Mm,
perhaps their way of avoiding flashbacks and avoiding,
mm,
temptation, or even just avoiding the trauma that they experienced from that exposure is by putting a limit within their marriage for the
mm.
vitality of the marriage. So that's given me a lot
Yeah.
to think about.
Can I ask a question on that, or am I being too much?
I mean, Patricia, do you
So,
have to go
Go
soon? I'm so
ahead.
sorry.
sorry, Patricia. But I'm glad that you just mentioned flashbacks because I think that's something to touch on because I love those, I guess, 3 questions you mentioned, Patricia, to navigate the dynamic between you and your partner during sex. But what about yourself and like what's going on internally? Because there could be a lot of things that your partner doesn't know you're thinking about, or they could be thinking about things that you don't know. And I think especially for men who have most likely been exposed to more pornography, if there is moments where they are having flashbacks during intimacy with their partner, how do they navigate that? Like, is it important to stop the encounter to not, I guess,
Mm,
like, I don't know, solidify that flashback? Do you know what I mean? Like, what if they're thinking about something else and then they're having an orgasm with their partner, but they're actually really having the orgasm with their memory?
This is
gosh.
again, unfortunately, really common because
Mm,
it's
Okay.
with premarital experiences, and it men and women, because now an increasing number of women are watching pornography.
mm,
So
mhm,
pornography and premarital experiences, and sadly sometimes premarital not by choice but
right.
rape
Oh,
or
okay.
something, harassments, something that's abuse that's happened before. Our brains have a way of, especially when it comes to sexuality, as you said, having those solidified, almost flashback type little video clips that get
Mm,
fixed in your brain. Pornography rewires the brain,
right.
but even other experiences can get fixed in the brain. And sadly, when you are in your sexual experience, I have talked to couples who say, I am with my wife and I love her, but I
Mm,
Mm,
keep thinking about the porn star I watched
mm,
or this girl I had sex with before. And I don't even want to be with that girl anymore, but I remember. And
mm,
firstly, to say that, look, this is something sadly that is in our brain.
right.
And it's called memories. And memories sometimes can be really powerful, especially if they are the ones that have stimulated what we call your reward system. It's a chemical dopamine which gives pleasure. So if it's a dopamine reward system, that becomes a pleasurable memory. So
Right.
firstly, to recognize that, look, this happens, it's part of Christian fallen nature, the character of our brain. So don't feel guilty and ashamed that it happened.
Mm.
However, recognize that our brains are such that the wiring, the neuroplasticity that caused the wiring, can be rewired.
Mm.
It takes time, it won't happen overnight, but the important thing is to be, and now I'm getting into more like the counseling, to work on being in the moment.
Mm.
Right.
So when you are, if you're a person who's having these flashbacks, again, plan your sex life when you are not tired, not
Right.
stressed, when your mind's wandering, when you can actually set your mind on your spouse.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Be in the moment of enjoying the touch.
Mm.
Concentrate on the touch, on the visual. Why should you have your eyes closed when you're having sex or an orgasm? Why
Right.
would you close your eyes? Keep your eyes open. Stay in the moment.
Right.
So
Mm.
that staying in the moment,
Mm.
that consciousness of that moment, and working on that and fixing the images of your spouse in your brain
Mm.
to
Mm.
replace. Our brain works on a use it or lose it. You
Oh wow.
starve the ones that are unhealthy and replace it and build it with good things. And we can work on that. It won't happen overnight,
Mm.
but we work on it, and don't feel guilty and shamed. It's just your brain pulling up old memories.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
That's
such a
awesome.
reminder that we have to take every thought captive, even in sex, you
Mm.
know. And it's a
Yeah.
convicting point for me because in so much of my therapy sessions with clients, we sometimes worked through some sexual intimacy things, and we talked a lot about mindfulness, about how even your ability to have an orgasm is so dependent on your ability to be in this moment, because sometimes it doesn't feel nice until it feels nice, you know. And you say to your husband, try something else, that's not working, try something else, and then after 20 minutes, oh, hang on, that actually is starting to feel nice. And flashbacks to pornography or past sexual experiences, they can hijack your ability to be in the moment. And I think for women, especially, or I don't know if erotic literature was always very common, but a lot of the literature that we're reading at the moment has a lot of I would say soft core porn, sometimes even hardcore pornography in some of the books. And even that can sometimes spring to mind, even
Oh,
though
yeah.
it's a fictional character. It's got nothing to do with where you are. And I'm sure there's some strategies and tricks to stay in the moment, keep your eyes open. And even I've even found for myself sometimes to just say my spouse's name over and over again while I'm with him, to just be like, he's the one who I love. He's the one that I'm meant to be with, even if I'm not thinking about flashbacks, but just thinking about the laundry and the list of things I have to do and so many other priorities that are important, and just bringing myself back to he's the one I love. He's the one I love, you know? So I guess I want to talk a bit about, there's this fine line, I think, in when you think about scripture, that there's natural consequences to our sin. You know, if we've lived a provocative life, there is natural consequences to our sin, and yet there's so much redemption that Jesus offers us. So can a sex life be rebuilt after shame or trauma or even long-term disconnection? I'm sure you work with couples where there's been, you know, dry months
Well,
or years. And where do
well,
people even begin?
the reality is, like, firstly, I don't do therapy now. I'm too tired and too old and everything else. So I've
Sure.
given up the couples therapies. But I'll take back to a couple of years ago when I was only seeing Christian couples. So the place, the thing is that when a Christian couple are faced with, like, a history of pornography, or you worked with couples, I'm sure, just as I have, who come with this history of premarital sex, all
Mm.
the baggage. It's a bit like carrying a backpack full of rocks into the marriage. And you've got to be able to shed that for real, true intimacy. Now,
Mm.
when the spouse finds out about this, and it's really, really difficult
Yeah.
because it involves, the person who's either watched porn or had the extramarital affair. Let's just take examples. They come and share. Let's just, for an example, say it's the husband who's done it,
Mm.
the porn or whatever. He shares with the wife. It's like he has shed his burden.
Right.
But the wife is the one, now he sort of said, okay, I've repented, I've done my bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now she is the one who bears it and has to go through that forgiveness and rebuilding of trust
Mm.
because it's
Right.
betrayal. Pornography is infidelity.
Right.
And so
Wow.
you betrayed the spouse. And as a counselor, you will recognize that that takes time because you have to again get back the naked, no shame
Mm. Mm-hmm.
bonding that has been broken in betrayal. And sometimes I tell couples, it's about like Christ and us.
Right.
You've repented and you're like, okay, Christ has taken over my burden. But
Mm.
Christ went to the cross. And unfortunately, the spouse who has been betrayed needs actually more support
Wow.
than the porn user. Unfortunately, in the church, we often think, oh, this person has watched porn, he or she needs a lot of help. The partner, who's the one who's been betrayed,
Wow.
needs just as much, if not more, support
Mm.
Yeah.
to rebuild the intimacy, rebuild the trust.
Mm.
And that is a long process, and often, and not often, but yeah, I would say often needs external counseling, preferably with a Christian counselor, but some good counselor who
Wow.
can work through that process
Mm-hmm.
of rebuilding intimacy.
Wow.
Is it impossible? No, because we are people who believe in the covenant promises. Is it always possible to rebuild the intimacy? Unfortunately, not.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is a place where we would say to couples, look, maybe you need to take time out
Right.
from each other
Mm.
to
Okay.
actually work through what it means to rebuild the intimacy. It's
Mm.
very individual, as you will know as a counselor.
Wow.
I guess it ties to, well, I was just thinking as you were talking that it makes sense that if after marriage, if you become one flesh, like the Bible says, that then if there's, someone watching pornography and that betrayal, like, of course, it has just as much impact on the other person because you are one flesh. So it's done something to that, that binding that's happened on a spiritual level as well.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just when you said that, I thought of, sometimes I talk to people who divorced, and it's like they'd sit in front of me and say, you know, I don't even like him, much less love him, but I miss him
Mm.
Mm,
because we have bonded.
Of course.
right.
And it's like, you bond, it's like you form this little super glue
Mm.
between the two of you. And at a brain level, it's you don't want to be bonded now.
Mm.
You're
Yeah.
separated. But you feel the grieving
Mm.
as if the person is actually dead because you've
Wow.
torn apart
Mm-hmm.
something that God said should not be torn apart.
Mm,
It's
Wow.
amazing how the chemistry and God's word
Mm.
really like mean for marriage
Mm-hmm.
to
yeah.
be this covenant commitment for life.
Mm.
And speaking about, I guess, how your partner's sexual experience impacts you, we've got a question that's been sent through to us from a Patreon, and it's a bit of a vulnerable question, so I'll just read it out to you. I have a husband who turns inward towards shame when feeling inadequate. I have found that when I try bringing up ways we can adjust or improve our sex life, he closes off pretty quickly and we don't get very far in the conversation. How can I engage in dialogue with my husband in a way that doesn't make him feel like he's not good enough at sex and rather this is just a conversation to maximize our intimacy?
Yep. I've had a couple like that in the distant past. And one of the things I said was like, forget about sex. Tell him, darling, I love you dearly. let's forget about sex. Let's learn to actually have a lot of fun together.
Oh.
Let's sit down and work out what did we enjoy together before we got married or even when we were newlyweds. I mean, can we try and build these fun times? You know what I'm doing? Building the recreational, emotional
Right.
intimacy.
Wow. Yeah.
Forget the
Yeah.
sex. Who cares, for now? Let's forget about genitals and orgasms and things, and let's just have some time of fun finding things that we enjoy doing together. When you build that, and then maybe move into, how about we just sit together and watch something we enjoy? How about we sit nude together and watch something we
Mm-hmm.
enjoy?
Right.
So move it up gently rather than concentrate. For the moment you keep thinking about how can I improve sex, he's like, I'm going to step even further back. So whatever the underlying reason is, drop the sex, enjoy each other, and let the sex happen slowly.
Right.
Build the intimacy slowly. That's what I would advise.
It's nice. It's just like taking the pressure off, which I that's why I really loved your book for when I first got married, is that I don't think you said it in this words, but what I took from that chapter was just laugh your way through. Just laugh, be humorous. It's not that serious. Don't take yourself too seriously. It's okay to laugh and be jovial, and sometimes we forget to do that, especially because life can be really hard. And life with little kids can be really boring and monotonous, and you're just trying to survive the day. And so adding like a bit of joy or fun or a game, sometimes that has nothing to do with sex. You end up having sex anyway and you have a great time. Or
Yeah.
I was going to say this earlier, this is my own little tangent, but when it comes to the redemption of forgiveness and what the gospel offers us, sometimes in my own marriage I've experienced that my husband confessing something to me that has hurt me has sometimes, it gives you this opportunity to be it is harder for you, like you said, Patricia, to be the one that forgives and is open to reconciliation. And sometimes in those moments we've actually ended up somehow having sex anyway, and actually having better sex because you're experiencing the lived gospel that you've
Yeah.
done something, you've hurt me, you've betrayed me. Oh, I could get emotional about it. You've done something that's hurt me, and in this moment God has given me gospel power to forgive you. And then the redemption is having a really great orgasm. It's so healing. So
Amazing.
Yeah,
yeah.
I just very quick story. I had a couple who just were like that. Like she, soon after marriage, discovered him masturbating to pornography, and it shattered her. They were very young couple. She was about 19. So, and he
Oh
was about
gosh.
in his 20s. So it was like, and she was his innocent, newly married, never had sex. And it just broke her. And they
Right.
sat with me and we talked it over and set all the usual boundaries and everything when it comes to porn use.
Mm.
Came back in about a month for the second, and she was like, okay. And like, he was like, fine. And I'm like, sent him out and after the one by one, and I asked her, and I'll never forget what she said. She said exactly what you said. She said, Patricia, I worship a God who forgave me. How can I not forgive the man God has brought into my life? And I thought,
It's so
what a
Wow.
good.
beautiful thing for a young woman
Oh
to
yeah.
be
Yeah.
able to forgive because God forgave her first.
Wow.
And it's hard. It's hard for us to forgive.
Mm.
It was hard for Christ to forgive, bring our forgiveness on the cross.
Right.
It was a hard thing that he had to do for us. And sometimes forgiveness is hard. But as Christians, we are given this space. And yeah, the makeup sex can be great.
Just a little perk.
Amen. Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess to finish off this conversation about the redemption of sex, we've got a few like rapid fire questions for you, Patricia.
Sure.
First one being, what do you think is the biggest lie told to single people around sex?
And I'll just quickly interrupt you there. I think our podcast has majority, like, I think dating or married people, but we do have single people that listen to our podcast. And even when we do episodes on motherhood, we're so mindful that even like raising children, people can have like be really informed about connecting with children, even if they're not parents. And so I know this episode for the listeners is very geared towards marrieds and, intimacy and marriage. But if you're single and you're listening, we're so glad that you're here.
Yeah.
And I think that part of why I love this topic so much is that I wish that I had learned more about this when I was single. I wish it would have equipped me so much more. So if you are single, we're glad that you're here, and we hope this does encourage you in a way of the season that you're in, but also just being informed and educated in a way that's hopefully encouraging and can equip you to encourage the people that you're connected with.
Okay, answer the question. What is the biggest lie said to single people? The biggest lie said to single people is that you need sex, sexual intimacy for contentment.
Okay.
Wrong.
Okay.
You need intimacy for contentment. And that is called good friendship.
All right.
Wow.
Sex, I mean, is penis in vagina orgasm. Look, if the beauty of marriage is all of us will experience in eternity. If you marriage in the world today between Christians is a tiny 30-second trailer of the ultimate reality that every Christian will have. If you're single, you're missing out only on the 30-second trailer.
Wow.
You and us marrieds are all going to experience the ultimate glory of the heavenly marriage.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's great.
Love that.
Okay, what is one 5-minute habit to build intimacy? And I know at the back of your book you have some, some activities and games which I have participated in. They're a hoot.
Cuddles and communication doesn't even take 5 minutes. Lots of cuddles, lots of kissing at the kitchen sink, and lots of taking intentional time out to talk about what your partner enjoys, sexually and otherwise.
Okay, great.
Communicate. That's what I'm hearing a lot of.
Communicate, touch.
Yes. orgasm, hearing that.
Even if orgasm doesn't happen.
Yes.
Touch.
Yes, amazing. And can a celibate person experience deep fulfillment with God?
Definitely, because Paul was single. I mean, Jesus Christ was single. We are taught that true satisfaction is found. The joy is in communication and relationship, vertically and horizontally, vertically with God. Marriage shows the world, Christian marriage, in the community, in the compromise and sacrifice, shows the world a little bit about what the cross is. But Christian singles, in their celibacy and their ability to control what the world says is uncontrollable, are showing the world that God and Jesus is sufficient for them.
Yeah.
And that is amazing. Christian singles, you are actually, the church should be honoring you, because you are showing the world that Jesus is sufficient for you. You don't need to have an orgasm to be satisfied. Jesus will satisfy.
Oh, wow.
great.
That's so encouraging, because I think we have in the church, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, that we've so glorified marriage, which marriage should always be held in honor, but we've sometimes glorified it so much to the detriment of other relationship status. And marriage, I don't know if you said this or maybe Shane Willard at a conference, but all relationship status all relationship statuses is a relationship status with problems. There's just different problems, and it is encouraging to hear that singleness almost experience more of a taste of, I guess, intimacy with the Father, because they've got such a reliance and dependence on him. Whereas in marriage, you can so much forego that intimacy because maybe your idol is your spouse, or, whether it's physical intimacy or something else. So that's super encouraging.
I'm just going to finish this episode with one little question, because I think it was somewhere and then I think we skipped it, but I've had this conversation a lot with some of my girlfriends, so I feel like it's relevant. I found that after having children and my body belonging to my kids a little bit more, breastfeeding, birth, all the things, I found that my view of myself, I find it very difficult to view myself as sexy, regardless of what my husband says. He could be saying the most beautiful things and he thinks I'm so attractive, but sometimes we'll be in an intimate moment and I just almost want to start laughing because I feel silly, like, getting into it because I just don't feel that way about myself. And I was speaking to my friend the other day and I said, I wonder if it's because, in the movies when there's a spicy scene, rarely is the woman a mum who's like just been with her kids and whose baby's crying in the background. It's always this childless woman who can be sexual. And so I feel that now that I'm a mum, my brain has gone, you're not sexy anymore, like that's now. And so, yes, I'll participate in sex and I'll get into it. But do you think that there's any tips that you can give for women to, I guess, should we be in touch with our sexual side to enjoy a little bit more?
I've been asked this before, and one of the things I say is, firstly, the lie is that you have to masturbate to get to know yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
masturbation is never a healthy thing to do. I
Mm.
don't say it is like if you ever masturbated, you need to feel guilty and ashamed. It's just an unhealthy habit because it is solo sex.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like, I can satisfy myself, I don't need you. It's not a
Mm.
good way to get to know your body. It's about, use just self gratification. So forget the masturbation. The second thing I tell women is, look, don't be ashamed or unwilling to do something for yourself. So for me, it's like it's just occasionally going for a pedicure and a manicure, just to let someone else take care of your body. And, whether it's going for a massage or going to the
Mm.
spa or something with your friends or on your own,
Right.
it doesn't matter. We tend to think that once you're married, it's about children, it's about cooking, it's about, now I've got to go and make lunch, which actually I have to at about 11:30, so I better, so
So,
if we allow all this to take over our life,
mm.
it is okay to take care of yourself, to
Mm.
go buy some good lingerie, get a good massage, anything that makes you feel good. It's not a wasted thing. That's what I tell women.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that's good. Love that.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I'll wrap up this part two. Guys, sorry, if you're still here, we're very thankful. And I know that you will be, because who does not want to talk about sex? I just think people are going to see this title and click on it because they want to talk about it. So look, whether you're married, single, healing, or rebuilding, your body is not a burden and God designed it to be good. And in Jesus, we believe that all things can be redeemed, even if even if it's a journey, and even if it's a journey of sanctification. In our next conversation, we're going to shift up and talk a little bit about the next generation and how we can raise kids who are secure, wise, and grounded in their identity in a world full of noise and in a world full of pressure about sex. So, come back next time.
Tune in.